And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with you this morning. One of the major issues bringing people to the voting booth this fall is the issue about whether or not to legalize marijuana. Joining us this morning is David Kaminsky. He is Vice President for Public Policy and Energy at the Canton Regional Chamber of Commerce. Good morning, Dave.
Susie, how are you? Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you, too. Thanks for joining us this morning. First of all, second career for you. You are well known for having done what previously?
Well, there are people who still remember that I had 33 years at the repository, and the last 10 of those years I was the editor of the paper. I left in 2007 and found my way to the Chamber of Commerce, where I've worked on a number of different projects. I used to be involved quite heavily in education and workforce, but under the new strategic plan that the Chamber adopted, the business community wanted a more vigorous voice in public policy and government affairs, probably concentrating on state legislative issues. And so my duties were shifted a little so that I concentrated on that. But the energy part of my job description involves trying to promote the oil and gas business in the Utica Shale to the benefit of our local businesses. And I've been involved in that since 2012.
And I imagine that future is going to include a lot of what's going on with Hall of Fame Village and all of the incredible economic boosting to the economy and to our area. Yes? We
at the Chamber are very involved in that and trying to make that happen at all sorts of different levels. We think it's a great opportunity for the community, and we're there to help and advise in any way we can.
Well, let's talk about this issue that's facing our community. Tomorrow's Election Day, and folks really need to know, what does Issue 2 say? What does Issue 3 say? Let's begin with Issue 3.
Yes, I would rather do that because Issue 2 was a reaction to Issue 3.
Okay.
Issue 3 is an attempt to set up a regulated marijuana industry in the state of Ohio. 10 investor groups came together under the title Responsible Ohio. They have secured 10 places in the state of Ohio where they would set up enclosed indoor marijuana growing farms. One of them will be an alliance if the measure passes. And they would be the only people allowed to grow marijuana commercially, both for recreational purposes and for medicinal purposes. So at the very foundation, it is an organization that tries to restrict business operation to the 10 people who have invested in this effort. So our threshold problem is that we are setting up a monopoly within the Ohio Constitution with its own set of rules, with its own tax structure, and can only be changed by another constitutional amendment. Mm-hmm. What they are proposing is similar to what the state of Ohio did with the casinos a few years ago, where there are 4 full-fledged casinos in the state of Ohio, and only 4, and only at specific locations identified in the Constitution, and only owned by the people who own them.
The language in the advertising is so confusing because I know I've seen some things saying it's not a monopoly, we'll start with these 10, others will follow. What do you say to that?
Well, that perhaps is true if there's enough demand after a few years to add another growing site, then another one would be added. But it's hard for me to speculate whether there will be more. I think that is their best explanation for why it's not a monopoly. But the fact of the matter is, you and I right now could not come up with $10 or $20 million, whatever it takes to enter this business and become one of those growing sites, because those have already been procured by the people behind the amendment.
Who are these people?
There are various business investor groups. Some of them are from the state of Ohio. The people who want to operate the Alliance site are investors from Chicago. People have been recruited to do this. But it goes beyond the growing sites. There will be They say there will be research facilities to test marijuana and experiment with it. There will be manufacturing facilities that will turn it into smokable marijuana or candies or soda pops or all sorts of other ways to baked goods, ways to ingest marijuana. Then there will be a whole series of retail stores that will be permitted, much like liquor establishments are now, with a local option vote in a given precinct. But they speculate that there's something like 1,000 or 1,100 of these retail sites for recreational marijuana that could be set up around the state. And then on top of that, there would be dispensaries for medical marijuana. And that's another set of establishments that would come from this effort.
Now, if these people are from out of state, you're saying Chicago and so forth, what interested them about Ohio? Why Ohio?
Well, I think I really don't know the mechanics of it. I mean, we don't have recreational or medicinal marijuana permitted now.
And they think it's important that we have that?
Well, perhaps they do. I think perhaps they also believe that if we had it, they would make a lot of money.
There would be a market for it.
I think it's a big business operation. They have an estimated $20 million to put on a campaign to persuade Ohioans to vote for this measure.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're talking about issue 3.
Issue 3. So you can only imagine what they might expect to gain from this business.
Now, the marijuana that we're talking about is not the same substance of the 1970s, correct?
That's what everybody says, that it's a much purer, much stronger strain than before.
And they're talking about making this into candy?
It can be candy, it can be elixirs, it can be lotions, it can be any number of products that could deliver that to people. I've seen advertisements from the state of Colorado, which had medicinal marijuana for a few years and then went into recreational marijuana, and the advertisements are really pretty amazing. Print advertisements featuring Santa Claus. I think that there's one could infer from what you see in Colorado that there's really an effort to make sure that young people notice this. There are people in Colorado who are selling one product or another, and will offer you a free marijuana joint if you buy this product or do this or that thing. So it's I don't know what the climate will be like in Ohio if this passes, but what we see in other states is pretty amazing.
Colorado really was sort of the test pilot.
There are 23 states in the United States that have marijuana for medicinal purposes. In addition to that, 4 of those 23 have adopted marijuana for recreational uses. Ohio is the only place where they propose to go from nothing to everything all at once. And so we would have a lot to learn if this passes.
What do we know about these states who have gone ahead and approved it?
Well, I know a lot of anecdotal things, but I will tell you that when we looked at this issue at the Chamber of Commerce, I did not focus. I did the staff work on this, not only at the local chamber, but we participate in a group called the Metro Chambers of Ohio, which are the 8 big city chambers in the state and the Ohio Chamber. And when we can, we get together and speak as one voice on public policy issues. So we study this not only at the Metro Chambers level, but locally. And I will say this, that there's some statistics on crime. There's some statistics on children's health. All of it, I think, is pretty recent stuff, and I did not want to start cherry picking details out of reports that I didn't know the methodology of discovering it. So what we did at the Canton Regional Chamber of Commerce was concentrate on what we thought we knew about, which was attracting a drug-free workforce, which is very important to many of our employers, most of our employers, maintaining a safe workforce, so that people are not impaired when they're operating heavy machinery or forklifts or handling consumer products that could endanger people. And the third thing, which has come to rise from this, is the rather ambiguous situation that employers will be in if they try to maintain a drug-free workplace and have an employee come to them and say, my doctor has recommended that I self-administer marijuana for one medical condition or another, because the amendment, and I don't have the words in front of me, says to the effect, nothing about this amendment will preclude an employer from maintaining a drug-free workforce, except that someone with a recommendation to take marijuana will be able to self-administer that drug like any other drug.
Like an over-the-counter type thing?
No. You would have to. A physician won't write a prescription for marijuana, because regardless of what Ohio does, it's still illegal under federal law. He or she, I think, would write a recommendation that a patient try marijuana for this or that various condition, and with that recommendation or that letter, they could go to a medical marijuana dispensary and get marijuana. Nobody knows about what the dosage is or what's effective for what, but we again concentrating on its effect on our members, employers who create and maintain the jobs in this community. We think that there's going to be a conflict when an employer is trying to maintain a drug-free workplace and an employee comes in and says, but I can self-administer marijuana because my doctor said I should. So does that mean they go on light duty? Does that mean they can't work there anymore? I think that employment attorneys are going to unfortunately have a lot of work out of this. And I also think that unfortunately, the smaller the employer, the less robust his or her human resources department or legal department is, and the less likely they will be able to deal with these crises. I think there's going to be a lot of conflicts in court over this.
It's a very interesting perspective, looking at it from the employment perspective and where the chamber stands on it. We're speaking with Dave Kaminsky. He's Vice President for Public Policy and Energy at the Canton Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're talking about issue 3 and eventually issue 2, which voters are going to be taking a look at tomorrow at the voting booth. If marijuana is illegally, it's illegal, there's federal laws against.
Correct.
Yes. So who are we as a state to say, well, we're going to make it legal here, even though it's illegal federally? How does that work?
Well, it has worked in Colorado and the few states where they have done this. I think perhaps.
How do you go against federal law?
Well, I think perhaps the federal government has decided they're not in a position or equipped to deal with this. I don't know. I do know that, however, that there are a number of employers, trucking companies, for instance, the gas company, for instance, that are regulated by the Department of Transportation or the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that must maintain drug-free workplaces. And so whether this will cause them no conflict or a lot of conflict, I'm not sure about that yet. But we first thought this was a small business problem, but the more our larger employers thought about this, the more they realized this is going to be an awful thing for them to work through.
Interesting. We're going to be back with Dave Kaminsky after these words. You're listening to Our Community.